All right. Okay, so thanks everyone. Sorry for the slight delay. I thought that we can just get this webinar going. We got one of our speakers today, Dr. Wayne Freeman Chong, who is actually a caregiving advocate. All right, and I think he's going to share with us more information about his experience, in caregiving, and to even cover the topic on the application of psychology in caregiving and aging. All right, so without further ado, I'll hand my time over to Wayne. Dr. Wayne, over to you.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Aaron. And I want to say sorry to everybody. The reason we are late is because I was late and I forgot the time. I thought it was 2:30. Well, actually, I've been thinking it is 2:30 when I have been sending information that it's 2 o'clock. So my sincere apologies. I'm very sorry. Let me get the lights off. Okay, now you can see me much better, right? Okay, this presentation is really my journey and the lessons I learned that I believe will be useful to caregivers. Right? If you stay till the end and if you participate with me, I will promise you two things. Right? You will get some freebies from my company that I get. Right? And then if you turn on a camera, interact with me, and then you also will get some of these freebies as we go along. Okay. All right. So here we go. That everyone can see my shared screen. Can you have a thumbs up if I can see your thumbs up for that you got my share screen there? Yes. Okay. Sydney says yes. Irina, Catherine, yes. Draina, Cindy says yes. Okay. Catherine says yes, right? Alicia, I don't know whether you can see. Yes, and John K, right? Okay. So I don't know, John, whether you can see my share screen. I hope you can. Yes, excellent. Okay. Oh, hi, Catherine. Thank you for turning on your camera. Hi. So let me first bring all of us back to the time when I became a caregiver. Right. This is my grandmother. This is somebody who took care of me since I was that age. How young do you think I was? Type in the chat that age. How young do you think I look like in that chat? Please, if you can. And I'll review that age in a while. You see, when I was, oh, okay, I see the numbers coming in. When I was a small boy of that age, my parents were working or was, I mean, my dad was like nowhere, and my mom was at home most of the time taking care of everything else. My brother and I have a younger brother, right? And so we were living at this third floor of this flat, HDB flat in Tiong Bahru. It's called Singapore Road. Today it's still there, and it's a different place. It's in front of the community club. Those of you who put the correct answer, oh, I think only one person got the correct answer, and that is Sijia. Hi, Sijia, you got 4. That's correct. I was 4 at that time. Okay, so please remember, I will remember your name. Let me write it down because later on I'm going to give you a freebie from my company if you stay on until the end of this session, right? Sijia, you're the only one who got it right. So congratulations. So back to my story. She was a very loving grandma. I mean, I have no time to tell you all the stories, but one thing that I always remember her was that she would buy my favorite fish balls. And here's how she would do it. She would first get out of the house on just any typical day. When I was 4, right, no school, right? So I was in the house all the time. She would get out of the house, you go to market like, and it's called the Tiong Bahru Market, right? Wet market, okay, right along Singapore Road, and she would buy her whatever that she needs to buy and once a week, and I don't know what day it was, so I was always looking forward to that day, anticipating it as it goes along, right? And I will have a surprise one of those days. Now, if she buys my favorite fish balls, what she'll do is that she will not head back home immediately or directly, walk up the staircase until our third level house around about 9 in the morning. What she would do is she would go to the other side of the house, and we have this kind of small little balcony there, right, where we could actually it's open air, there's no shelter, and we could look down and see, and I could see my grandma just there, and that's what she would do, right? She would be there, and then she would scream out, "Hey, I'm here!" She would call me. come, Wayne, come. And then I know my fish balls are coming. Because here's what she would do. She would have me lower this basket by rope down so she could put her various heavy groceries, including a fish balls. But she'll do it in two patches. She will first put my favorite fish balls. I'll roll that up, and then I'll roll that down, and then she'll put all the other things. Why does she want to do that? She says that she wants to let me have my fish balls first. So by the time she walks up to the level 3, I'm done with my fish balls. I've eaten them. You know, um, and those days, fried fish balls, that was the main thing for me. I wasn't looking forward to candies and chocolate bars. It was fish balls. It was like one stick of 3, so there were 2 sticks, and I was really happy about that. And those were the days before Old Chunky was widespread in Singapore right now, right? Today we just go to MRT station, right? We have that. So that's my grandma. Now, fast forward, right, from 4 years old, fast forward to the time I was 24, she became frail already. Yeah, she needed help. And my mom was the main caregiver. So I realized that my mom probably could do with a bit more help. And so this is when I stepped up. That's when I stepped up to become I would say a secondary caregiver to help my grandmother with her day-to-day activities of daily living, right? Today, there are 6 well-known activities of daily living limitations that clinicians, social workers, etc. assess to come up with recommendations on assistance to daily living, right? So then my grandmother couldn't, by that time in the photo you see, she couldn't bathe on her own. She couldn't, she could feed herself, right? She couldn't kind of move or transfer safely from the bed to the wheelchair. Certainly, she cannot walk. She was really that frail. The condition that she was diagnosed with initially was rheumatoid arthritis, and it started with the knees, very common, right? Among persons of 70 and above. And then she has other conditions that made her have to go to appointments and care by us in the house. At that time, she didn't like the idea of having a domestic helper. I wasn't sure though whether at that time my parents could afford. By the time I was 24, I just started working not long, and when I realized the strain that caregiving was putting on my mom, right? I said, why don't I help? And that's how I started. Right, that was how I started, not really knowing much. And in fact, I felt that I was probably one of the, I didn't know where to start. I was I didn't know what to do. I mean, like, how do I change adult diapers, right? I mean, which step first? you know well, okay, put down the pants. In fact, having to look at naked body, private parts, that was so uncomfortable to me, right? A young male with an older female. Yes, my grandmother, but still uncomfortable. And I had to experience those emotions for the first time in my life at that time. So where do you think I learned to maneuver the wheelchair safely? How to transfer her body from the bed to the wheelchair? Once again, type in the chat if you want the next freebie from my company. Type in the chat, where do you think I went to for my first protocol, for my first how-to list? Where did I get my information, or from who do you think I got my information from? Type in the chat. So that was a time when I learned caregiving from scratch, right? And the person, if you get it correctly, you'll find out that that is not a place that is recommended for you uh, to get. Self-taught, not really. Yes, self-taught, but after I consult, after I find out something, from this person or from this source. So make a good guess and type in the chat. Where do you think, or from who, from what do you think I got, my information on how do I self-teach? I mean, I must refer to some source, right? Type in the chat. Okay. So by the time I was 25, unfortunately, my grandmother had to be in the nursing home. And you see on the right side, right, she lying down on the lower right, and the upper right, that is a picture in a garden in the nursing home. And that was when I realized that, man, not just I, but even us at home, all right, my mom full-time caregiver and myself part-time or secondary caregiver, still not enough. She needed 24/7 care just for safety, just for her own safety. By then, she had been diagnosed with even more conditions, diabetes, type 2, advanced stage, and then uh, liver had problems. I think kidney had some problems. And if I recall, she started to show also some kind of memory or cognitive decline. I'm not that was not diagnosed. I remember no dementia was diagnosed, but I could tell, at least and at that time I didn't even know what dementia was. Right, I thought it was a person. I mean, at that time in Chinese, dementia was called 老年痴呆症. That means old age and get mad, something like that. Right. Today we call it 失智症 in Chinese. It's a loss, right, of some cognitive ability. So yeah, so that was then. Now nobody guessed correct. I'm gonna type the answer. Nobody guessed. Last chance. Anybody want to guess where I got my first protocol from? Okay, I'm gonna type you the answer. Right. I type here so that it's not recorded, and then because this is not recommended, so don't do this. But this was what I did when I was 24. Here's my source of information on how to do various things in caregiving. There you go. Okay. Not so if you're watching this after this live, people, if you're on the screen, you didn't attend this live webinar, but you're just watching this because it's recorded, right? Please try to get your protocols right. Don't do what I did, okay, when I was 24. Not recommended. Okay, that was the day. Those are the days before ChatGPT. Okay, if not, I would have checked ChatGPT. Yes, that's what I would have done. Okay, when I was 24, or if I were 24 today. So that was my grandmother condition. Very close to me. It was sad for us to let her go into nursing home. I visited her once a week. Still, I felt I could do more, but yet I do not really know how much to do more. Right. Um, Aside from emotionally speaking, one incident along the way really kind of made me realize that caregivers really have it tough. It was just days before her admission to nursing home. That means she was already wheelchair bound and very frail. That's not her condition right now, like that. Just kind of days before she was admitted, right? She was standing at home in our living room, right? She was standing. Okay, in fact, she was sitting, but when I got home, somehow she was standing. I think because she was trying to find her own adult diapers. I said, Grandma, wait, what are you doing? Let me help you. Let me help you. I got home about 8 p.m. that night. It was a Thursday night. And then she kind of ignored me, and then I thought she couldn't hear me, so I quickly went and asked her what she needed, and I quickly went to get for her. But before I could hand her, and help her change her adult diapers, which by that time I learned how to do, she started berating me, scolding me, because I was home late, so I didn't change her diapers on time, and I hadn't tended to her 2 or 3 other things that I promised that I would earlier in the day. I thought I would reach home like at 7 that day, but I reached home at 8. Now, at that moment, that was a very stress wane at 24 years old. It was near the exams, and I had multiple deadlines to meet. It was, yes, around this time of the year, like late October or early November, exams are coming, undergraduate, right? Yes, when I was 24, I was still undergraduate because in Singapore, we served 2 years in the national service in the army. Okay, and so I wasn't feeling that great that day, and then her berating, her frustration, her venting of anger, guess what it did to me? It actually made me push her. Yes, and she fell, and she broke the right elbow and her jade bracelet into 3 distinct pieces. I immediately regretted, but it was too late. Jade was broken. She was in pain and Thereafter, she was bruised, but thankfully, there were no other injuries. That was the incident that made me realize, wow, it's tough. It's tough to be a caregiver. Even though I wasn't the primary one, my mom was, right? No wonder my mom was depressed at that time. And it was that thought that led me actually into deciding that for my PhD thesis, I would do caregiving. And that was what I did. And that eventually led me to do what I am doing today. My grandmother, right? So in that year, so subsequently when uh, when she was frail and entered the nursing home, I enrolled in a PhD program, and my topic was the relations or the association between caregiver burden, caregiver depression, caregiver health status, and use or non-use of long-term care facilities like nursing home and community cares, community hospital, senior care, today called active aging centers, and so on. So that was what brought me to to my turning point to study a PhD. Just a caveat at this point, if you just tune in at this part of the video, a PhD is not for everybody. I'm not saying that everyone should do a PhD, okay? But that was my journey. All right. So I realized that beyond what I could do for my grandma and my mom, right, as caregiver, as a helper, as a son, as a grandson, right, caregiving can help me find a purpose, and that purpose could actually perhaps help many other caregivers out there. That was what I did with my PhD. I told myself when I started it that I wanted to make an impact with not just the knowledge that I would that I would create at the end of my PhD with that manuscript or journal publication, but I want that knowledge created to translate into impact to help many other caregivers. And this is what I'm doing today in the consultancy. So yes, I have publications, and you can use Google Scholar. You can find my publications there on a range of kind of different subspecialization in geropsychology. So geropsychology is the study of the psychology of aging. Right? I say again, the psychology of aging. It's called geropsychology. In Singapore, currently, I don't think any university outside of NTU Singapore is teaching it. That's because I'm teaching it. I have been teaching it for the last 4 years, 4.5 years. This semester I took a break. In the past, NUS psychology did have a course on the psychology of aging for probably a year or so. I published in dementia prevention. That became one of my current, you can say, passionate topics, or topic of interest. That's because I realized if I had it so hard and my mom had it so hard as caregivers, I realized that dementia caregivers have it worse, simply because that person is a different person with severe or moderate cognitive decline who is receiving the care. Today, I get earned media not just in the Straight Science Forum. I get radio interviews, and in various of these media appearances, whether in written or in person, right? I try to speak to an aspect about caregiving that is overlooked. I also give public and professional talks, public, private, and professional talks on dementia prevention. You can see that poster there, and on corporate, on employee caregiver stress. That's what I do today. Interestingly, in the recent Singapore general elections, this topic, right, went into the manifesto of one of the political parties. The words compensate family caregivers never appeared until in 2020, my publication in the what we call that, the Insights of Public Health journal, that is one of the journals that is housed in an Indonesian university, right? And then I have been speaking on that, and then for the first time, right, it was encouraging for me to realize that I'm starting, or the work of caregivers, the contribution of caregivers starting to take on a public discourse, and that is something that encourages me, that tells me that I should keep going, right? So today, if you're still here with me, what I like to do today is really provide you with three things. One is to kind of give us some outlook about the opportunities in the space, in the caregiving space as a psychologist. In fact, the opportunities as a psychologist to deal with aging, Right. Second is to share with us some of the skill sets. I call them the skill stack. Right, that can allow us to break wage ceiling and other ceilings in the profession. And then thirdly, if you follow me until that far, right, we can together, I can suggest to you a 30-day, a 90-day, and a 1-year plan on how to get started and to sustain. The phrase, the core or foundational phrase that I like us to remember today, if you can take home anything, is that a caregiver could transform from plight to purpose. Right? Becoming a psychologist who takes care of caregivers and older people actually is one way to help transform plight into purpose. Here we go. I hope we are all following so far. Okay. Okay. What is caregiving, or what is caregiving science? Right. In plain English, caregiving is simply assistance with somebody else, right, regarding activities of daily living limitations. That's caregiving. Okay. We can say that in Singapore, much has been said that caregivers are stressed and burdened. Elsewhere in the world, right, we start to see metrics, numbers that quantify the contributions of caregiving in financial terms and in non-financial terms. Now, here's the thing though. What do you think differentiates? What do you think differentiates a professional caregiver and a non-professional caregiver? Type in the chat. Type in the chat if you have some idea that regarding what differentiates or the distinguishing or the difference between a professional caregiver and a non-professional caregiver. Type in the chat. Thank you. Financial remuneration. Yes, that's correct. That is one. Right. Today, when we use the word caregiver in Singapore, we really are talking about people who are not remunerated, often family members, unpaid. Right. Elsewhere in the world, like in the US and in the UK, when we say caregivers, we really are referring to healthcare professionals, doctors, nurses, and so on included, right? As well as family members. So over there, elsewhere, we say formal caregivers or informal caregivers, right? In Singapore, we just have caregivers to mean family members, right? Did I pronounce your name right just now? Irena or Irena? Right, you wrote differences in emotional dynamics. Dynamics means change. Differences, wow, that is a loaded word. If you, why, I don't exactly know what that means. Uh, but yeah, a family caregiver does have custodial responsibility of the care recipient, whereas a professional caregiver, right, have limited responsibility. Right. So this is why perhaps family caregivers seem to have their burdens reduced or relieved when their loved one goes into a nursing home or into a full-time 24/7 nursing facility or care facility to stay. Right. That's because custodial responsibility is transferred or relinquished from this party, the family of origin, to that party, the care provider, the professional care provider. What I want to impress upon us today, right, is that as a psychologist, if you are, whether you are a would-be psychologist or you're a new associate psychologist, right, if you are interested, if you want to move into this caregiving space, right, it is no different from moving into helping other target populations, so to speak, because there are ways to measure caregiver burden, there are ways to intervene on caregiver burdens, and there are ways to show positive or improvements in outcome. Same thing, the process of measurement, intervention, showing outcomes, then redesigning measurements and measure again, intervention, show outcomes. That whole process, the evaluation/research process, is also not different in other subfields of psychology beyond caregiving psychology. Okay, if you are interested in where you think, if you're interested about career prospects, here is where you have to take note. I I identify for us based on MOH press release and some of the uh, private consulting firms wage report. I identify for us in four areas in psychology, right, that are going to be in higher growth than other areas in the next 3 to 5 years in Singapore and in the region. Right, here we go. Community and um, community and primary care. That is where primary care is essentially general practitioners. But today, beyond general practitioners, we have family health centers that require psychologists. We have family medicine clinics that also have psychologists there. And often, whether it's general practitioner or various of these centers, you would see older people as patients. Community care brings that kind of one notch higher into for more greater service provision. So there are in community care community hospitals. There are obviously active aging centers. There are what we call day rehabilitation or maintenance day care, not only for older persons but also for persons with mental disability or intellectual disability, right? Then of course we have ILTC. ILTC stands for intermediate and long-term care, right? That is that essentially refers to intermediate refers to community hospital, long-term refers to nursing homes and hospices, whether stay in or at home, right? Then obviously there's home care. Home care is divided into home nursing, home therapy, home help, and other home services, right? And I say aging and ILTC, that means that intermediate to long-term care that are meant for persons with advanced age-related conditions. Of course, you can also become a psychologist for youths and become a school psychologist. For these, talk to Carlin, talk to Aaron, they have more experiences, right? Or you can be an AI psychologist, right? Has anybody heard of AI psychologist? Right. No, well, there isn't such term in the APA or SPS, right? American Psychological Association list of professions or Singapore Psychological Society list of professions. Don't have, no. But increasingly, we are witnessing in the industries psychologists being engaged, being hired, being employed, right, whether on a part or full-time basis, to assist with the digitalization of interventions, medical technologies, medtech, right? Health technologies, health tech, right? And each of these medtech, health tech can be broadly divided into your therapeutics, that means actually help others, or the diagnostics. Even if you are a non-clinician, you are not interested in each of these conditions that health tech or med tech could be of assistance, you could become a psychologist who is a specialist in the interface between that technology, right, and the user. Okay, that is what we call today as the human and computer or human and technology interface, right? Of increasingly triage type of work is being done by psychologists as well, using technologies or being developed by psychologists so that nurses and other care professionals could uh, could be more effective. So here we are, four main areas, and psychologists like you and I, if you're even if you're not thinking about going into the path of clinical psychology or counseling psychology, right? So I'm talking about non-clinical psychologists, right? Here are the four areas that you want to take note, that you want to think about going into in the coming 3 to 5 years, right? Let me see if there are questions at this point and if everybody is following okay. So write okay in the chat if you are following okay. If you have a question at this point, feel free to ask as well. All right, thank you. Thank you, Sujia, Cindy, Signer, and Raina. Thank you. Oh, I see Dr. Jeffrey Chan just joined in the last 5 minutes. Hello, Dr. Jeffrey. Okay. Right. So that is my first point. I said that look, if you want to become a psychologist or you are a psychologist already, we're thinking about going bringing your career forward, right? You want to know where the work is coming or will be in the near future. Here are where the work will be. Certainly for a geropsychologist, one could work in any of these categories. Right. Interestingly, if you ask me, when are you working in any one of these? No, I'm not. No, I'm not in primary and community care, right? I'm in a consultancy, right? So am I in aging and ILTC? I guess yes, aging, intermediate and long-term care, no. Aging related, I'm in private consultancy. Am I in youth and school? Certainly no. Maybe Dr. Chan will know more about that. And then digital and triage. Nope. Yes, I do help. I do get what I call get invited to co-write proposals for grants on digitalization of interventions for dementia prevention. Yes. But other than that, I'm not really in health tech or med tech. I'm not a software developer. I'm also not a specialist in human computer interface, so to speak. Right, but here are where the jobs are. And so, well, where the jobs are is where the money is. That is the other reason why I suppose some of us might want to think about where to go next. Um, okay. This is, I think, something that we may need psychologists or would-be psychologists may need some time appreciating. And I want to illustrate this with my prop here. And I think I should stop share for just a bit. Okay. Okay. Type in the chat if you can see what I'm holding right now in my hand. Can you see what I'm holding right now? If you can see, type in the chat what you can see. What am I holding right now? Okay. Oh, thank you. Yes. Right. Aaron saw a rubber band. Each of you saw a rubber band. Yes, great. In fact, two rubber bands here. Right. Here's what here's what we can do with a rubber band to illustrate the next point. You see, in psychology, we say that after we graduate with the first degree, then I must, if I want to be a practitioner in whatever field, even non-clinical, right, I need to take a roughly 2-year applied professional course, right? Counseling or IO or forensic, and so on, and obviously clinical, right? Then thereafter, I need to chalk out a number of hours, right? In the US, they call them externships. That's beyond your 2-year practicum, right? And then thereafter, in Singapore, you need to chalk up by SPS regulations 1,000 hours, right? And then that 1,000 hours or whatever number of hours should include supervision hours as well as direct service delivery, right? So after that, you become a qualified, independently proficient psychologist, and then you realize, okay, if I just start my own clinic, no one is gonna come to my practice. So then I must join this hospital or that center, or be part of the ministry of this or ministry of that in Singapore, right? In the states and elsewhere, you realize that state level and federal level regulations are different. In Singapore, we are a city state, so it's just one regulation. Okay, one kind of system, right? In the US, for example, you have the state regulation committee that you need to pass. Then after that, you have to pass the national. If you want to practice outside of that particular state, let's say outside of San Francisco, outside of California, then you have to make sure you also fulfill the APA, the national APA, right? Registration requirements. So then you become an ABPP. That is the accreditation for clinical psychologists in the States. For Wayne, for me, good news is I don't have to be bothered with all this because there's no registration pathway for geropsychologists in Singapore, right? In fact, outside of the undergraduate, one module that I teach right now, there's absolutely no specialization in geropsychology in any of the clinical psychology courses in Singapore right now. So James Cook University don't have. Last I checked, NUS doesn't have. Last I heard, NTU Singapore wants to start a clinical psychology program, but that was also 5 years ago. They thought about that, and until now they haven't started, right? other counseling schools in Singapore in private sector, the PEIs, private education institution in Singapore that has psychology programs, all of them do not have a geropsychology program. Okay, does that mean that therefore Wayne and anyone who joins me, I am high in demand, I just go to anywhere of these and I can command a high salary? Not necessarily. Here's why. This is a rubber band, right? You see, if I stretch it too much, it will snap, isn't it? Beyond this tension, this is kind of the natural tension it has. Beyond this, it will snap. If I do not stretch it and kind of let it remain status quo or equilibrium, if you use physics, right, then it remains a rubber band like that, and it will decay after a long time, isn't it? Decay meaning put a rubber band there, 10 years later, you touch it, it will just break, right? It just disintegrates. Okay. So how does a rubber band retain its strength, continue to function? You need to keep stretching it, but not too much. You can stretch it a little bit, and then maybe after a week or a month, stretch it a little bit, stretch it again, right? I liken a geropsychologist to be like that in the Singapore context and in several other contexts. Because the profession is new, relatively new and relatively unheard of, and I have to even explain what I do when I say I'm a geropsychologist. Until today, I do not introduce myself as I'm Wayne, I'm a geropsychologist, right? I say today I specialize in caregiving and dementia prevention. People immediately understand and connect. This is because a new profession, right? A new profession is not in public awareness. And when that happens, there is room, yes, to grow without being subjected to pressure or public scrutiny or intense competition from your peers or would-be geropsychologists. But at the same time, if you overstretch, you break. That means you, if I venture into something that I'm so interested in, for all I know, one day I might be stepping outside of psychology altogether, or step outside of caregiving, helping caregivers or older persons altogether. Now, so for a geropsychologist, for me, it's very important that I continue to stretch myself regularly, but not overstretch. For me, that means that it is important for me to stay in touch with the ground needs, such that one day when there's enough public awareness, people will start to value the work I do. If some of them already value the work I do currently, then that value would increase. And when I say some people, I really refer to anywhere between individuals and organizations. Let's talk organization first. Many of you are thinking about looking for jobs or looking for a better, more aligned job. If you're thinking that, you are a prospective employee. You might come to me, Wayne, and say, Wayne, do you have a job for me? I want to become a geropsychologist. Can I be your associate psychologist for you? Can I be your assistant? Right? That is when I would, yes, ask you about your passion, but that's when I would also ask you about your skill sets, not only in psychology, but in several other areas. For instance, how do you talk just with, what are the skills you have in interacting with people who need help, and on a whole, in general? How are your presentation skills, for example? How do you ensure that your listeners actually get what you try to share or teach or train them, right? How do you know that you have made an impact, right? How do you know what are the ways that others have made an impact that you could take? And the list goes on. Okay, how will you let others know that you are a psychologist for this condition or for this population, right? How do you continue to deliver impactful work, not just more work? So you can see that a geropsychologist right now actually requires more than just the person to person interaction. Sure, I can give you all the scales assessment tools and train you on how to say administer the BDI and the ZBI and the all the I's, GDI, GHS, right? So many. CESD, oh my goodness, so many. Okay, and you can be very proficient in that. After you administer all these, you can write report. That's what I learned in graduate school. My postgraduate diploma of clinical psychology basically taught me that. how to administer various skills, right? Including intelligence, adult intelligence, the ways, Wechsler adult intelligence scale, right? Now I forgot which edition it is in already, right? Yeah, and then write reports on that, and then get my senior psychologist to sign it up. Um, what what a psychologist working in the community needs, and certainly a geropsychology needs, right, is what I call T-shaped competency. So now if I can pull up my slides again, right, the verticals are the uh, you can say the specialized skills, the very technical skills that only a psychologist of that area would have because of the training that is unique. But there are other, you can say, generalist skills that one ought to, or one would find beyond, say, your first 2 or 3 years, right? Very necessary for career progression and for maturing as a psychologist in those subfields. So once again, let me share my slides. Right in the chat if you cannot see my slides. But here are my slides. Right. So I'm talking about service design, communications. I earlier talked about use of technology. Right. There's also ways to evaluate a certain psychological program or service or center or clinic. And then for those of us with some experience, right, provide supervision to the new ones, to the APs, the associate psychologists. Right. So while we can have our core competencies, right, T-shaped skills are very much needed. I believe not beyond geropsychology in Singapore and elsewhere, but many other areas of psychology, because of one thing. The contribution of psychology in public domain is still not very well understood. That's what I can say from personal experience, and also from the literature, right? Once again, that the contributions, the value add of professional psychology in the public domain is still not yet very understood. I mean, in Singapore, take mental health, right? Is sort of fast becoming a big thing now. National committees, national workforce task force set up. In fact, licensing of psychologists was is now seriously being considered by the ministry because of mental health, right? And that was because of COVID, right? Now, we 20 years ago, another story I can share with you this. 20 years ago, my first job, I was a counselor. I was called a psychologist. Back then, there's no APs. First job already called psychologist, but slash counselor. I was working in a counseling center, right? I knew nothing on how to, right, deliver all those interventions like cognitive behavioral therapy and so on, right? So many, right? I knew nothing. I learned many of my, you can say, on the job type of skills on the job actually. Now, the point is this: 20 years ago, when I started, I asked my clinical director. I said, "Look, boss, uh, is there something that psychologists like me could look forward to after I get masters and maybe I pursue a doctorate, right? I mean, will I continue? What kind of more impact can I make, right? Never mind about making more money. I'm not here for the money, but well, does it mean I get to do more, serve more, greater scope of clients? How come doctors can do this and nurses can do that, and then I can't? And then when people come to see us for our services, they they have to apply leave rather than be issued with a medical certificate or time sheet that is recognized. So she told me this, Wayne, don't worry. In 15 years time, right? I believe psychologists will be regulated because at that time, which is now at that time, 20 years ago, right? Ministry of Health is already looking into the regulation of psychologists. This was said to me 20 years ago, right? And the expectation was 15 years time, right? But today it is now 20 years, right? In fact, to be specific, to be exact, 19 years since I started, right? No, we still have not. We may be closer to regulation of psychologists in Singapore, right? Legal requirement, but we are still not there yet, right? So had I not have all these differentiators, I wouldn't have been able to continue doing what I'm doing. I might continue to rise up the rank from psychologist to senior side to principal side after I take a PhD or a doctorate. And then if I'm lucky enough or fortunate enough that I stay long enough in an organization that's also big enough, I may get a title of, say, senior principal clinical psychologist or senior principal whatever psychologist. And that's about it. I don't know if you know of. Oh yeah, if you are the very very top, you become chief psychologist. We have a few there in Singapore, right? MSF we have Vivian, right? In MHA we have used to be Majid. I don't know now if he's still there, right? We have these folks, good folks, great-hearted, but when they started, they had not only core, they had differentiators. All these differentiators are not taught to us in our graduate school, certainly not in our undergraduate curriculum. But today, I share with you as a geropsychologist, right, that we need these differentiators. We need the horizontal stretch factor on top of our core for us to progress. I hope you appreciate this. So the point about stretching the rubber band is not too slack, not too tight. It works for psychologists. Not too slack, not too tight. So that was really my first point. Where are the industries you could go and what kind of skills you should be looking for? Let's look at the wage outlook. I think I should illustrate the wage outlook with my other prop right now. So if I can stop share. Okay. Okay. Type in the chat if you can see what I'm holding in front of the screen. It is a toy, yes, but what do you think this is? Okay, move it back a little bit. Yes, this is a toy with a cow like looking. What do you think this is? Type in the chat. Aaron says weighing scale. Catherine says scale. Okay. Cindy says what? Seesaw toy. Yes, yes. Some more, any other names or anyone else see something else? Anyone see something else? No? That's all? Those are all the answers? Okay. All right. So you're all right. You're all correct. Okay? You're all correct. So here it is, in fact, yes, it's a weighing scale. So, well, there is, for Cindy, there is no seat here. So kind of, nothing or no one can sit on it. So it can't really be a seesaw. But yeah, the idea is there. One side goes up, the other side goes down. Yes. Now, trying to balance. Yes, Catherine. Great. Yep. Cindy, great. You got it. Thank you for contributing that seesaw. First time I think about seesaw because I didn't see any seat here. Okay. Here's how it goes. We know that in a seesaw or in a weighing scale, right, one side goes up and down. That's obvious. When there's weight on one side and there's no weight on the other side, right, you go down and the other side goes up. So I'd like us to picture, right, this as a formula or as an analogy, if you like, yeah, for our for growing our professional career. So earlier on in my first point, I talked about how to enter, what skills to have, right? To enter, when you enter as an AP, what skills to try to equip yourself with incrementally when you're an AP to progress forward. But now let's say we go beyond an AP. You're now a P, you're a psychologist, and you want to go beyond a psychologist to senior psych to principal psychologist. Yes, you can have your degrees, you can do your masters, you can do your doctorate or PhD. Okay, but my question here is, right, would your pay increase? Yes, you would when you get promoted by virtue of your degree. Yes, but thereafter, most of the time, right, if you rely on the degree and number of years of experience or number of hours of practice, those two factors are not going to bring up your wage. That is because in Singapore, public health and public social sectors, the wage bands go by responsibilities, not years of service. Right? I say again, your wage, your salary, if you're thinking of employee, right, it goes by not years of experience or years of practice, right, but it goes by your what do you call that? Your responsibility. So I liken us doing this. If we do more, so using this as a framework, right? This seesaw or this weighing scale. If we continue to practice more and more, chalk up more than 1,000 hours, right? So that's essentially saying I continue to add more hours, right? You can see that on the left side of the screen or on my right side, I continue to add hours to my practice, right? And then, well, when I add, yes, one side goes up, I'm loaded with more load, clinical load or counseling load, right? Many of us may think then that is supposed to, well, I do more, I'm supposed to get paid more, right? Yeah, you get paid more by just that little bit. And you don't get a categorical increase. It will not be this way. This is because many others can also do more. So yes, you have competition like that. I haven't added that. Others can do more. And then here you go, you balanced out. And others can outdo you. There you go. And then others have more, others have greater clinical hours. So then when they outdo you, should they get paid more? It's hard for the boss, the HR, to decide, right? Based on clinical hours, years of experience, just like that. They can't. Okay, especially for a field like psychology, when quality of service is not directly tied to number of hours put in, right? Whether it's direct face-to-face hours or case writing hours or group supervision or individual supervision and so on. It's hard. It's hard. What we need to do if we want to raise our wage is, instead of keep adding number of hours and doing more and chalking up years, yes, that's important, right? To improve your skills, yes. But on top of that, we need to add something different. So this number one here, right, represents something different. It has a little weight. When I add here, yes, when this is a different responsibility now. My wage goes up. For, okay, I'm looking for another number one. Okay, here we go. A different color here. Number one. It signifies the sum of the same responsibility but done by another person, your competitor, so to speak, your peer, so to speak. To do that, while the peer can also look for add another scope to his or her job to increase the salary or to help hopefully see the salary or wage increase, right? This person cannot do exactly, cannot replicate exactly what you have added beyond more hours. This is because what you add right now here is going to be your niche, something that is unique to you. Okay, something that is unique to you. So if the person wants to add a greater scope, that person will have to think about what is unique to his or her interest and ability. So let me find another number I have. I just borrowed this toy from my children. This is the number 7. So if I add this thing pretty heavy here, to balance this up, the other side will probably need kind of like 5, still not enough to balance, and then 2. You see? This is because perhaps you're the only one. Oops, I dropped it. But you get the point, right? Perhaps you're the only one who could have 7. The others would have to have 2 plus 5 or 3 plus 4. I say this because my personal growth has been like that. I have been a caregiver not once, not twice, but 3 times. First for my grandmother, subsequently for my mother, and then for my father, who all 3 of them passed on, the latest of whom was my dad in the year 2020 after COVID hit Singapore. Now, that story only I can share. How many other psychologists can share that he or she has been a caregiver once, twice, and 3 times? Not many. For a grandmother and a father and a mother, probably even fewer. Right? That is my unique point. That is my niche. That is my personal story. That's my founder's story. That is the story that this consultancy is built upon. You see, that is my unique point. So while I could build up all my T-shape or my T competencies outside of the core psychological competency, I also have my unique personal points to share. And often our unique points really come from our own experiences, personal or professional. So today I would like to ask you, what is one or more of your unique experience that you could bring into your practice or your would-be practice if you would like to practice as a psychologist. Let me share my slides again. Today, the Public or Social Service Agency, SSA, pay is banded. Banded meaning, well, as I told you, categories. Movement at inflection point basically follows a certain path. Registered, senior, principal, lead, and so on. Right? Licensing is coming for psychologists, already announced. Titles and advertising, right, under the Healthcare Services Act will evolve, right? And the upside would come from the growth in your scope or the job size, not years of experience or not tenure. Certainly not psychologists. That's not number of years of or hours of practice. So while we can say that as you increase your competencies, right, you will be able to continue to grow as and make greater impact. Yes, but really, if you want to make impact, yet at the same time you find that your wage is stagnant or you hit a stagnant professional ceiling, is your motivation as a psychologist going to get affected? Is your motivation as a care professional, right, more broadly speaking, going to get affected? If you believe it is right now, or it will be in the future, because when you're older, you have more responsibilities. Like I became a parent now, 2 kids, 2 younger children. Yeah. Then you want to think about wage, salary levels as well, right? And here's what I would share with you, that upside or increase in salary comes from scope growth, not tenure. So that's my second point. So first point, once again, was that T-shape is important. The second point is that we need increase in scope, not tenure. And I think I will end off with my third point, right? I talked about some of these earlier on, supervision and governance. That overlaps with your T-shaped skills, evaluation skills, data analysis, service design. These are skills. Communication, yes, these are skills. Right? These will help break ceilings with skills, but you need one more. That's your niche. That's something that only you can say. Your story. That's something that only you can explain why you're doing what you're doing. Right? Then that niche is also something that you can value add, that close to nobody else could value add in your area of psychology, even if your department has 10 psychologists. Right? What I did after my first, well, towards the end of my first job as a counselor slash psychologist, I took on adjunct lecturing. I realized that moved my salary much faster. So from being paid, I recall my first job paid me 2,300 Singapore dollars a month. Then after a year, $2,400 Singapore a month. Just by going to lecturing, I was paid an hour 100, 110. Then it grew to 140, then 150. Just by the third year of my work experience. That's right, by the third year. While I was still doing full-time job and part-time lecturing adjunct, right? Realized my wage grew, because then when I subsequently applied to a new job, I don't just take my full-time salary slip, right? I bring my full-time and my part-time salary slip to show them. Say, look, this is my combined salary. If you want me to take no other jobs outside, then, well, please consider this salary level that I'm making in combination. Right? This also allows me, doing this also allows me to avoid what do you call it? Having salary slips documented also allow me to avoid unclear professional relationships and dual relationships that I don't like, that ethics would caution us to avoid, right? So that is what I did. That was my experience, right? Here. Oh, okay. Oh, I beg your pardon. I'm supposed to have a third point here. Sorry, let me. I might have stepped on something else. Click on the wrong slide. Sorry. I unshare for a moment and see if anyone has any questions. Please feel free to ask while I get my slides together. Any questions so far? Nope. Okay, good. Excellent. Um, oh, I should just now I saw that Cindy and Catherine participated in this one, so I should give you the freebie as well to stay towards the to the end of this seminar, this webinar. Okay, so thank you very much for your participation when you said weighing scale and seesaw toy. Okay, so now I am going to share screen again. I'm so sorry. It happens. Share screen for my last point. Okay, here we go. Right. Give me a thumbs up or say okay if you see my share screen so I know I can move on. Good. Thank you very much for all the thumbs up. Okay, let me now move on. So earlier on I said add weight. Yes, add weight to this, you will rise. But for your value to really increase, you need to increase your scope rather than increase number of hours or tenure. Okay. Third point. Now here's where the action will be. I'd like to suggest to you a 30-day, a 90-day, and a 1-year roadmap for you to consider. Okay. What I did when what I did before I co-founded this consultancy with my business partner was I actually looked for a mentor myself. Right? I actually looked for a mentor. I went around, I just searched online as well as through my contacts for somebody who is in aging psychology in Singapore. Somebody who could be my mentor, who can guide me on what I just shared with you. Unfortunately, you know the answer. The answer is don't have. Yeah, don't have. So the next best thing to do is to look for a mentor that is outside of psychology, but still in aging. Then that one I got. Okay, I got a few. So they taught me from their own professional experience and also career experience, right? What it is like to work in long-term care service, what it is like to work in public, what it is like to work in private consultancy and private practice. That helped me design the kind of work I would like to do after I graduated with a PhD. Right? I could have continue to become a research fellow, rise up the rank, senior research fellow, principal research fellow. That wouldn't have, unfortunately, aligned with what I want to do, the kind of impact that I would like to make. Hence, I didn't take that path beyond the initial 3 years. So what I like to suggest for us to do, right, if you're thinking about either moving into AP or progressing from AP onwards, is to find a suitable work supervisor, if you can, whom you feel safe enough, or a mentor who is outside of your work, your professional environment, and start to ask career questions and write them down in a logbook. Okay. At the same time, pick an outcome too. If you want somebody who wants to make an impact. For me, I picked those four there because these are tools that assess the well-being, various types of well-being of older persons. Okay. ZBI, for instance, Zurich Burden Inventory, that assess the burden level of caregivers. Okay. Now pick some tool that you know in your field or in your chosen field and become good at it. Try to let that be your core. That will become like your main competency. And try to do that within a 30-day period. Get a supervisor, find your purpose, yes, your story, then find an outcome too. In the 90 days, right, that means about 3 months, see if at your work area or outside of your work area or community, that's fine too, right? See if you could start 1 or 2 micro projects that do not require substantial funds, that do not require clearance at various levels. I'm not talking about those that require, say, ethics clearance or say internal approvals at your workplace. But try to see if you can find an opportunity within a 3-month period to start 1 up to 2 such projects in the area that you are interested in. Right. For me, that 90-day project in 2017 was actually the predecessor of my consultancy. We started a training program for caregivers, and we thought we just run it once and twice. Caregiver psycho-emotional training program. Right, today we have such training programs being conducted, and no longer just by myself but my colleagues. We have 2 departments right now, right, on a monthly basis. At least 1 runs every month. caregiver psycho-emotional, psychosocial training program. But for you, what is it? I don't know, right? Find one within the 90 day. See if you can start it and try to measure outcomes, the before and the after, right? And it doesn't have to even be such a large scale. It can be just say a online podcast. It could be say um, I don't know, do a series of videos and put them on YouTube, social media, right? Or it could be say volunteer at Singapore National Library Board to give a talk on the area that you like to talk about, that educates people about some area of psychology, but it doesn't form your full-time job, so there's no conflict. Doesn't kind of conflict with your full-time. What you do in full-time? I put here one MDT. MDT stands for multidisciplinary team. That is clinical language in a hospital or care setting. That is if you work in the healthcare, right? See if you can kind of raise your hand and volunteer to say, can I make a case presentation, even though it's not part of my job, and I want feedback because I want to learn something. Okay, that's if you work in public health, right, or healthcare. In 1 year, see if you can volunteer or find a way to lead one service improvement, whether paid or unpaid. See if you can present a poster at some conference, and it doesn't have to be a research conference, right? But it could be some symposium. See, of course, many of you would already, I believe, be applying for postgraduate, I suppose, right? It's just a question of where, okay? So if you are thinking of doing that, sure, but think first on the 30-day and the 90-day. Is there some mentor that could guide you, a logbook that can chalk number of hours and areas that you have it served in the 90 days? Is there some project that you can show success when you apply for a mentorship? Sorry, when you apply for a training track or some kind of scholarship? Then within a year, apply to something, right? Some kind of structured training program, if that is you believe your calling, right? And so for me, my current work is meaningful to me because caregiving was my why. Because of my caregiving experience, today I and my team in Geropsych Consultants, we run training programs for caregivers and older people. We also run training programs for people who are interested to prevent dementia, right? We also do service design and program evaluation for senior care, elder care, active aging centers who want to scale up their programs in the private or in the public sectors. Most recently, even nursing homes came to us to ask me in particular if they can expand their service provision beyond just caring for those with a dementia diagnosis or with a diagnosis to persons who might be at risk but not diagnosed. Right, so preventive. We're going to the preventative space. Today, because of my caregiving experience, I find that it is a natural extension for me to write into the press, to get interviews, to talk in corporates, to talk last week on Mental Health Day, World Mental Health Day. I talked at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. It's part of their Lunch and Learn. Had a group of 10 to 15 of them, and I shared about caregiving. Right, I shared about how caregiving affects employees and what caregiver employees could do, and what managers of caregiver employees could do, right, to help themselves and to help their employee caregivers. To me, I don't find it a strain because I know strongly why I'm doing this. It is my why, and it's an extension of what I have been doing. By doing these various, you can say, right, endeavors, right, I realize that there are different outcomes that I can meet, that I can improve, and that makes me happy. And of course, today in the private consultancy, I have to align revenue, right? That if you are in the an employee, then that will be salary or pay, right? For outcomes, right? I strongly encourage you to consider, yes, a private space as well, right? If you are in the employment, and most of you perhaps would be or are thinking of, right? I am happy to talk with you further if you are thinking about how to carve a niche for yourself in the private space. And the third thing I leave you with is that about what I do is that I have a monthly review with my team on our outcomes, and we reflect on what we do so we can, well, to do better, right? So after this, okay, sorry, where am I? Okay, here. So within 7 days, I hope you will draft your purpose statement, and then within 30 days, see if we could do that one thing that I shared with you earlier. My consultancy, we have this 15-minute introductory non-clinical private coaching that I or one of my more experienced colleague run. Today, because I'm here and there are only like less than 20 of us here, I'm happy to offer a free 15-minute career coaching for you. If you would add me on LinkedIn, please don't DM career intro, just add me on. Okay, you can write LinkedIn. I mean, you can add me on LinkedIn and then DM career intro, or tell me some career situation that you are in, and ask me for advice, or ask me to structure that 15-minute with you on to discuss that. I'll be happy to, right, for 15 minutes with regards to this path that or related path that that I'm taking. For those of you who participated just now, like Cindy and Catherine on this, right, and then earlier who answered my questions, I said you'll get a freebie, right? The freebie is a 30-minute longer, more structured what do you call it, session with me, just with me personally, plus a one sheet on how to implement this various things that I talked about today. So please connect with me on LinkedIn if you would like, right, a 15-minute free introductory career coaching about this path. If you cannot wait until next year, I know SG Psych has a mentorship program, and please feel free to sign up for that, right? If you cannot wait until next year though, right, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll send you my schedule, right? For those of you who participated, you get 30 minutes and you get a one sheet as well, right? So in closing, right, 3 things I shared with us today. The caring for my grandmother and subsequently my mom and my dad gave me the why, and I hope that gives you your compass. The second one was the science, those competencies that I picked up in my graduate training, in my undergraduate training, those scientific skills that I continue to pick up. They give me the how, the playbook, if you like, right, for caregiver-patient kind of methods, what we call dyadic-centered methods. However, to make this sustainable, I had to grow my T-shaped competencies and also my vertical. Right. So I have a strategy to do that. The 30-day, 90-day, and 1-year plan forms my strategy. Right. So that is why today we are in the 8th year of our business now. We have moved from just providing caregiver training to dementia prevention training to now doing service redesign and program evaluation. And most recently, in the last 365 days, professional talks, corporate training as well on our relevant topics. Right. So this week, I encourage you to choose a population you serve, or one method to master and one metric to move. Right. Here is how to connect with me, right? That's my LinkedIn on the bottom left, and that's my Facebook. I use LinkedIn much more than Facebook. So even if you have nothing specifically to ask me about, if you want to connect, I'm happy to connect with you. So in the future, perhaps you can ask me some things, sure. Or if you want to write to my email on the bottom right, that's my email address, right? So I'll leave us with this right now. And if I can reiterate my foundational phrase, I started off today saying that I want to share how I moved from a caregiver to caregiving advocate. I hope today I have given you not just my story, but also some kind of blueprint or some kind of roadmap on how I have done it and how you could do too, right? And then today I say, look, if one is able to do that, to move from caregiver to caregiving advocate, then one could actually transform plight to purpose. Instead of complaining or thinking that I'm in some predicament, I have made now caregiving my purpose, people whom I serve, and things that I look forward to. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks, Dr. Wayne, and thanks for trying to keep time even though we had a slightly late start. And also a big thanks to the audience who have been participating throughout the talk. I thought Dr. Wayne, you did highlight not only your personal experience but also your professional career and trajectory and the guiding principles that got you to where you are today. And I hope that all of them, our audience, and participants would take this back, right? And then after that, hopefully apply them in their lives and in their careers moving forward, and yeah, and I think the conversation doesn't stop here. So Dr. Wayne, thanks also for also extending to the audience, should they need to catch up with you or to link up with you for anything that you have talked about, or even beyond that, they can also do so, whether is it through us, SG Psych staff, or even directly through you to contact you via LinkedIn, that you have mentioned earlier. All right. So yeah, without further ado, don't wish to hold everyone back on a Saturday afternoon. Want to thank everyone for tuning in today. And most importantly, Dr. Win, thank you so much for your time. And yeah, so all of us will keep in touch moving forward.
Oh, Aaron, can we take a photo if those of us
Sure,
here are
sure.
comfortable to turn on their videos? Can we take a photo
Yeah, thanks for the
with the
reminder. So
camera?
yeah, maybe in the next 15 seconds or so, if you can turn on your cameras for a quick photo opportunity, that'll be good. Dr. Win, will you want to do that from your side, or?
I think I let you do that.
Sure, sure.
Okay, wait, let me stop share first. So,
Yeah, it's easier.
okay, let me stop share first. Okay,
Okay,
I think I let you do that. Yeah, I may be clicking on wrong things that I did just now, so I better not.
no worries, no worries. Okay, so for those who are willing to turn on, okay, I think that's give another few more seconds. Thanks, Reina. Thanks, Shitia and Catherine. Okay, yep. So a quick one. I'll count 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So and then we have a quick photo. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Smile. Thank you so much.
Thank
Yes.
you, thank
Right.
you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Yeah, and I think somebody, if you have, I mean, somebody who participated answered my question just now. So please connect with me on LinkedIn so I know who you are. Yeah, so that I can upkeep my promise. Like, if not, I'm not somebody who like to promise something and then never deliver. But please connect with me first so I can keep my promise. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, that's all. Really.
Right.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone.
Good.
Have a good
Yeah.
weekend.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.